Next, we will be discussing about the differences between private and public company. This is also a very important question which may come in your examination often. The differences between a private company and public company. So let us see what are the main differences. So the first point is minimum number of members. So to start a private company, minimum 2 members are required. Without 2 members, you cannot start a private company. To start a private company, you require minimum 2 members. In the same way, to start a public company, you must require minimum 7 members. Minimum 7 members are required to start a public company. So in case of private company, it is 2 members minimum, and in case of public company, it is 7 members. The next point is maximum number of members. So in case of a private company, you should have maximum 50 members. You cannot have more than 50 members in case of a private company. So generally, as we have already discussed, private company is generally within the family members or friends or relatives only. This company is established. So maximum it can have only 50 members, not more than that. But in case of a public company, the maximum number of members are unlimited. You can have any number of members in case of a public company. You can even have 1 lakh members, 1 crore members also. It is unlimited. So maximum number of members in private company is 50, and in case of public company it is unlimited. Next point is minimum capital. So minimum capital required to start a private company is 1 lakh. So compulsory to start a private company, minimum you require 1 lakh, and to start a public company, minimum capital required is 5 lakhs. So minimum in case of private company 1 lakh, and minimum in case of public company is 5 lakhs. This is the minimum, but to start a public company, in reality you require crores of rupees to start. But the minimum capital as given by the government or the rules is 5 lakhs for public company and 1 lakh for private company. The next point is identification. Now how will you identify? As we have discussed, the identification of private company is every private company must use the word private limited in its name. The word private limited must be there in the name of the private company. Either it should be in the beginning or it should be at the end. Generally it will be at the end of the name. Ramesh and Company Private Limited, for example. So that is called as private company. So the word private limited must be there if it is a private company. Now what about public company? Public company must have the words public limited in its name. It may be public limited or it may be limited also. Simple limited word also can be used. Either it can be public limited or limited word must be used. So that company will become a public company. So private companies must have private limited at the end of the name, and public companies must have public limited or limited can be put at the end of the name. Next is transfer of shares. Now as we have already discussed, in case of private company, a private company cannot transfer its share freely to others. There are many restrictions. A private company cannot transfer its shares to others or outsiders. But in case of a public company, it can easily and freely transfer its shares or sell its shares to others without any permission and restrictions. So private company cannot transfer its shares, and public company can easily transfer or sell the shares to others. Next, public issue of capital. A private company cannot secure capital from public. So a private company cannot invite outsiders to come and buy the shares of the company. The shares of the company are brought only by the members of the company. Only the members of the company of the private company can buy the shares. Outsiders and other public members cannot come and buy shares in a private company. Whereas in case of a public company can secure capital from public. It can invite the general public to come and buy shares of the company, the public company. So private company cannot secure capital from public, whereas a public company can easily secure capital from the general public. Next, Board of directors. Now, as we have already discussed, who are directors? Directors are the persons who look at the day-to-day activities of the business, because the shareholders or the members cannot come daily into the company and look at the day-to-day activities. The day-to-day activities are taken care by directors called as board of directors. So, in a private company, minimum 2 board of directors or 2 directors are required. Minimum 2 directors are required, and maximum is unlimited. It can have any number of directors, but it cannot exceed 50, because maximum number of members in a private company is 50. So at max it can have 50 directors. So board of directors in a private company, minimum is 2 and maximum is unlimited. Whereas in case of a public company, minimum number of directors are 3. Minimum 3 directors are required, and maximum is 20. You cannot have more than 20 directors in a public company. So minimum 3, maximum 20 in case of a public company. Next is quorum. Now what is this quorum? Quorum is whenever a meeting is conducted in a company, there must be minimum number of members who are attending the meeting, because without the minimum number of members, the meeting cannot be held. So the minimum number of members who are required to start a meeting is called as quorum. So in case of a private company, if they want to conduct a meeting, minimum 2 members have to attend the meeting, then only the meeting can start. So in case of a private company, to start a meeting, minimum how many members are required? 2 members are required to start a meeting. That is minimum I am talking. Without these 2, the meeting cannot start. Whereas in case of a public company, minimum 5 members are required to start a meeting. Minimum 5 members are required to start a meeting. Without less than 5 members, the meeting cannot be held in case of a public company. Next, loans. Now, in case of a private company, the directors can borrow the loans from the company. The directors of the company can easily borrow loans from a private company, because generally it is started by close friends and relatives, so easily they can borrow loans from a private company. Whereas in case of a public company, the directors of the public company cannot borrow loans from a public company for their personal use. Okay, so in case of private company, the directors can borrow loans from the private company, but in case of a public company, the directors cannot borrow loans from the public company. Next, legal control. So for a private company, there are less legal controls to start a business. To start a business, a private company requires less legal controls. Whereas in case of a public company, there are more strict and stringent legal controls have to be fulfilled to start a business. So in case of a private company, legal formalities for starting the business are less. Whereas in case of a public company, the legal formalities are more and strict formalities are there to start a business.